At the absolute highest altitudes of the Tibetan Plateau, the air is thin, cold, and completely quiet. Western audiences often associate Buddhist monastic life in this environment with deep silence and peaceful meditation. But the actual acoustic reality of a Tibetan ritual is loud, aggressive, and deeply physical. The source of that massive sound comes from monks wielding 12-foot brass pipes over the edges of the architecture. This instrument functions as a specialized piece of acoustic engineering, a low-frequency loudspeaker built to project a ceremonial signal across kilometers of open space. Known as the dungchen, these horns stretch up to 12 feet in length. Moving solid metal of that size and weight through steep, rocky Himalayan mountain passes is an absolute logistical nightmare. These extreme dimensions were a specific design response to a singular event that took place nearly 1,000 years ago. In 1040 AD, a Tibetan leader named Lotsun Dzongchap was working to firmly establish the teachings of Buddhism across Tibet. To accomplish this, he sent an invitation to one of the most revered Indian Buddhist masters of the era, Atisha. Welcoming a dignitary of Atisha's magnitude required a grand sensory display. Standard drums and flutes lacked the acoustic power required to announce such an arrival across the vast distances of the plateau. Historical records from the Namgyal Tantric College trace the start of the dungchen tradition to this specific moment, where the horns were deployed to herald the master's entrance. To meet the scale of that diplomatic reception, Tibetan craftsmen were forced to rethink the limits of acoustic engineering. Looking at the physical anatomy of the dungchen reveals exactly how they solved that 11th century problem. This diagram illustrates the acoustic footprint of the horn. A length of 12 feet is required to generate the specific, booming resonant frequency monks seems to project over distances. In the thin, low-pressure air of the Himalayas, these long wavelengths travel further than high-pitched sounds, ensuring the arrival was heard from the valley floor to the highest peaks. But hauling 12 feet of solid brass up a sheer cliff face is entirely impractical. To fix this, the horns were built in 4 or 5 separate sections. They telescope inside one another, collapsing into a compact unit that is easy to transport through narrow mountain passes. Finally, to keep that massive sound going, they are always deployed in pairs. 2 monks stagger their breathing, overlapping their notes to maintain an unbroken drone. The extraordinary length, the collapsible frame, and the staggered breathing were all functional solutions to an 11th century ceremonial and geographical challenge. The grand reception worked. Atisha arrived, and the dungchen was eventually absorbed into the center of Vajrayana Buddhist rituals. Today, it provides the rumbling bass line that sits beneath the higher-pitched melodies of double-reed woodwinds like the galing. Monks then layer in rhythmic elements like these flat brass silnyan cymbals, building out a dense, almost physical wall of noise. What began as a specialized diplomatic tool eventually solidified into the auditory bedrock of an entire religion. Hauling these colossal brass pipes to the edges of monastery roofs and driving breath through them still requires the same immense physical endurance today. Every deep blast ringing through these mountains is a living monument, an eternal echo of the 11th century invitation that helped anchor a new religious tradition among these peaks.